Welcome, everyone. I am here with Tianna Roser. She is the founder of Awakening Transformation. She is on a podcast with her friend Tim Howe called Beyond the Illusion. She's a certified clinical hypnotist or a hypnotherapist if she's in California. Let's get that right. A Reiki master teacher and just a pretty awesome human being all round, from what I know so far anyway.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Welcome to the podcast, Tianna. It's really good to have you here.
Yeah.
So good. So what does a certified clinical hypnotist do exactly?
Well, as we were talking before the recording, we don't do the little watch with us back and forth. Yeah, well, not this one. I don't know if anybody else does that. Really help people, we go into the subconscious and the superconscious mind. So getting out of our conscious mind and going deeper within to find answers and to do healing. I specialize in spiritual regression. So that's past life regression, life between lives regression, quantum healing, hypnosis technique, if you're familiar with those. The life between lives regression was created by Michael Newton and popularized through his book, Journey of Souls. Quantum healing hypnosis technique was created by Dolores and she's got like a number of books. So those are my favorite things to do, go, into spirit realm and look at soul purpose and, why you're here and what are your gifts to bring to the world. But also really working particularly with mental emotional issues. Those are things that we kind of brush aside and we just focus on, our physical day-to-day stuff, and people push these things down and then they affect us in so many ways, even, into our physical body. And so hypnosis is a way to see how everything's connected. Mind, body, spirit are all connected. And once we kind of get our conscious mind focus kind of softened and out of the way, we can look deeper and see what are the patterns and beliefs that might be affecting you and how can we shift them.
Awesome. Okay. What is, you mentioned the superconscious.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard of the superconscious before. Can you tell me what that is, please?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the term that there's so many terms and they can be overlapping and people have different systems. But because I talked about the conscious mind, which is our waking, tend to be left brain focused mind, particularly that we're very focused in and aware of. And then the subconscious, that's beliefs and emotions, stuff that a lot of us push right below the surface. Super consciousness is really your spiritual self, your spiritual consciousness, the great, super, just like it says, super consciousness is all that you are encompassing. These parts fit the conscious and subconscious fit within the greater you. But a lot of people don't know about their higher consciousness or don't believe in their higher consciousness, but it's still there and we can tap into it. And hypnosis is one way to do that.
Fantastic. Quantum healing, Dolores Cannon. Can you go into a little bit more? I mean, the first paragraph you said, there was so much to unpack there. I was like, I should have written everything down. No, but like love Dolores Cannon and her work. And I know a little bit about quantum healing. But just for our listeners, what does that entail exactly?
Sure. So I had been practicing hypnosis probably for at least a couple of years before I heard about Dolores Cannon. And, I was doing past life regression, and some of the clients would come in and they were talking about this woman's YouTube videos. Dolores Cannon had all of these, despite being, elderly at the time, she was like fully on YouTube and, ahead of her time and a unique person. And so I kept hearing about her and that her books she specialized with souls that have spent lives, or even, either consider that they come from or spent lives in other realms and other planets and other places besides Earth. And so those that resonate with that tend to find her books. And so I went and bought one of her books, and I was just fascinated. And she talked about having kind of this technique that's really, really highly effective for putting anyone into a deeper trance state. And so even though I was already practicing past life regression at this point for a couple years, I thought, oh, I need to go do her training. And this is when she was still alive. So it was nice because I went to LA and did training with her. So her technique, it's a past life regression. You explore one or two past lives. And then after so the past life regression is a hypnosis technique where you go in and out of several different points of a past life to sort of see the story of that whole life. When you were a child in that life, when you were coming of age, and when you're a young adult, and when you're older. And through experiencing several of those scenes, you get an idea of that whole life experience. And then at the end of that life, you review that life and look at, what did I learn in that life? What qualities did I develop within myself? Is there anything that needs to be healed or cleared or released from that life that I've carried into this life and is still affecting me? And how does that life contrast and compare to my current life? And what can I learn from that? So all of that's very helpful and interesting. And then, but then after the past life regression part, we call in the higher consciousness, and we ask it questions. So the client will bring in questions that they want asked. Typically things like, what is my soul purpose? And am I on track? But it can really be anything. It could be, should I move to Miami or Phoenix? It could be, why did I get in that car accident when I was 17? Or what was I supposed to learn from this relationship? Or all sorts of things. People bring in questions to ask to get answers from the higher consciousness. And then we do a body scan where the higher consciousness, if it's appropriate, can bring in healing for things. So it's a really powerful session. Tends to be about 3.5 hours long. So it's a pretty long session.
Yeah.
Long and goes in pretty deeply into the consciousness. But like I said, her material particularly attracted those that have spent lives or really resonate with non-earthly lives. And so it's really interesting. There are so many realms where we can incarnate. And so it's just fascinating work. It's never the same thing every single day. And so I love it. Yeah.
It sounds super interesting. Do you have a favorite, obviously without mentioning any names, but do you have like a favorite client story that really stuck out for you and it was just kind of mind-blowing what you discovered? Or
Oh, wow. I have the worst memory. I'm the person, I can watch and then 5 minutes after the movie. If you ask me about it, I can't remember what the plot was.
Oh my
And
God, Tianna, I'm the same. Yeah. I get it.
And then I'll have a client come back and they'll be like, yes, we did that. I just had this, we did this past life regression, and it was so powerful. And they'll be recounting it. And I'm like, wow, that happened. I totally forgot. So I also, I run a meetup, a spiritual awakening meetup, and a gentleman came on that I hadn't seen for a while that had been a client of mine, and he was recounting in the meetup the past life regression that we did, and these other beings that were sort of insect-like, which I guess when I hear that, I'm like the girly girl, typical insect, but actually they were full of unconditional love, and how powerful that had been for him, and how that had kind of really marked a big shift in his life. And it's kind of, and I don't remember that at all.
Oh, wow.
But when I hear it, I'm like, how can I not remember that? That's, that's so
Especially
interesting.
since you have such a dislike for insects.
Oh yeah. I mean, I definitely have in my personal life, I have some cockroach stories coming from Hawaii, and those I remember very well because they happened to me personally.
Sure,
But
sure.
you know, other people's uh, other lifetimes as other beings or connecting with, yeah, there are quite a number of so of course the sensational ones where you're not human and you're on a planet and there's three suns, and
Wow.
the person goes and looks down and, oh, they have hooves, they don't have hands, or those kinds of things are all really fascinating. But I also just I find it really fascinating. Like, so before we go into the regression part, we do an intake where we talk about this life, this person's this life, because there's been many, many past lives. And so your soul is going to choose to show you a past life, not just for fun, like, "Oh, look how cool that was," is going to show
Sure.
you a past life that's going to help you in some way. Like, in this lifetime, you came in to learn certain things, to work on certain themes, to grow or heal in certain ways. And so your soul is going to choose a lifetime that relates to that in some way, that helps you in some way. And so for me, the really fascinating part about it is just the intricate tapestry of all of these lifetimes and how they all fit into the evolution of our soul. And so after this person's just shared this life story from birth till now, the things that have happened, and they look at this life from a bird's eye view, which a lot of people have never even done. Because I'll have them tell me this life story, and I'll ask them, what do you think are the themes and lessons that you're working on in this life? And so many people will have not even kind of looked at that from a big picture. Like, if this lifetime were a movie or a story, what's the storyline here? And you're the protagonist in the story, and here's the part where the hero goes through their challenges, and here's the part where it helps to kind of
Hero's journey. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, to look at our life like this story, and then, because sometimes we're so in it, and we need to have that bird's eye view where we can see the arc, the story arc, and understand what's the overarching themes. And so to do that first with the client about this life, and then I always tell my clients, like, just like you, I have no idea what we're about to experience. I'm walking in blindly, just like you. I have no idea what your soul is going to show us. But I do have complete trust and faith in the process because I've been through this process so many times. I
Mm.
know that your soul's in charge, not me. I know your soul loves you and wants your highest good, is going to bring forth something that's meaningful, that's helpful for you today. And so it's always kind of like, surprise, I don't know what the soul is going to bring either. And I'm like, oh wow, that's so interesting. And then putting the puzzle pieces together, seeing how whatever lifetime, that you go back and you're a farmer in the 1800s or something, and how does that connect with your current life? What is the soul trying to show us? So it's kind of a little bit of detective work. And so all of that I find fascinating when we kind of get our aha moments of like, oh, that's why this was brought forth, and that's how this connects. And so that's just kind of a fun adventure I get to go on every day, and sometimes several times a day.
Awesome. It sounds fascinating. It really does. So you're talking about how the soul shows you particular past lives or moments in particular past lives that relate to whatever you're going through now, or yeah, to kind of however it interlinks with whatever you need to find out now to help you now, right?
Yeah.
um so what is, you've done a lot of this work now, for many years. What is the general kind of overarching theme with all of this? Like, what's the soul's purpose?
Um, Well, we could really, really simplify it and say the soul wants to learn and grow, experience love. That's the theme over and over and over again. There's such a benefit to sort of, so first reviewing your whole life and seeing, the ups and the downs and the trials and the tribulations over the course of however many years a person has lived. And then seeing a whole nother lifetime from childhood till old age, and seeing how all those little things, well, that seemed big at the time, but at the end, when you review the life, what really stands out is, the love that we share and experience and the way that we've grown. And so, yeah, I really think that we're all little pieces of the divine, and the divine just enjoys, continually expanding. And so we just keep coming in wanting to explore, well, last life I was a man. What would it be like in this life to be in a female body? Or, last life I had a lot of means. What if I grow up poor this time and try to figure out how to support myself, or all of these things. Like last time, it was all about family and supporting others. But what if this time I learned how just to focus on expressing my own inner truth, even though, and what if I put myself in a situation where everybody else's truth is different from mine? I wonder how that experience would be. So it's just really, yeah, when it comes down to it, if we really knew that we are safe, right? Because we're not really these physical bodies. These physical bodies are a temporary vehicle for us to learn and experience through. And then we release the body, and yet we continue to exist. And so we're always okay. No matter what happens to our body, we're always okay, because we're more than our body. We're this awareness, this consciousness, and we're love. And so those are the things that stick after, is like, oh, okay, how did I expand my consciousness, and how did I experience more love?
Beautiful. That's a great answer. Thank you. So going into now multiple dimensions, current dimensions, can you take a person into other lives currently happening in other dimensions?
Sure, why not? I mean, it gets really, so my little left brain can get overwhelmed if I try to like really put it in a logical
Sure.
structure, but that's what I love about the more that we connect to our soul, to our spirit. You have like an inner knowing where, and this is also why I like to work with energy, because there's sort of like a feeling of resonance when you hit truth. And so like quantum physics, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around it, but I have an inner knowing that it's true. So that the idea that all time is now, time and space don't really exist. Those are constructs from our 3D reality. And so everything just happens in this circle, and everything is now. And so we look at things in a linear way. And so we say, I need another circle to point to. Okay, so my coffee mug is
Do you need a whiteboard?
Yeah, but this is a circle, so it's a little bit, anyway.
Sure.
So we like to say like, oh, this happened and then this happened, right? We look at this around the perimeter and we go this, and then this was after, and this was before. But the truth is, it's all just a circle of now. And anywhere we put our awareness on around the perimeter of this, it's all happening at one time. And so that's true for time and space. And so time and space don't really exist. So we can tap in, once we kind of soften our conscious mind, we can tap in any which way, to parallel lives, to future lives, to past lives. They're all just lives. They're all just experiences. And
Sure.
And they all So to me, they all have equal validity, whereas sometimes people, it's happened where after they had this whole experience of another lifetime, and then at the end of it, when they come back and sit back down at the couch and to review it, they're like, how do I know that was really real? And that is like, that real question is just, that's going to just put your brain in knots, because how do you know that this is real? How do you know, so like you have this dream and you wake up and you experience this whole lifetime in your dream, and you loved and you lost and you cried and you grew in your dream, and then you wake up and you go, oh, that was just a dream. That wasn't really real, but then who's to say that when we die and we discard this body, that we don't think the same thing? Like, oh, this whole lifetime was just a dream for our soul, for our higher consciousness. So, and then in meditation, you can have all of these really amazing experiences, like bliss and love and peace and expanded consciousness. And I've had out-of-body experiences during meditation that feel much more real than this, in terms of a certain kind of clarity of awareness, where we're coming back into this feels fuzzy. The same way when you wake up from a dream, that dream felt kind of fuzzy and this feels more clear. I've had out-of-body experiences that felt much more clear, and there's different colors and that don't exist here, and there's beautiful music that doesn't exist here. There's more senses and awareness. And so really all of these things, they're just different states of awareness. And so we don't have to try to figure out what's real. In my opinion, it's just about, did it help you in some way? Did it give you some new insight? Did you clear or heal or release something? Do you feel better now than you did before? Do you understand yourself more? If so, then that's a valuable experience, whether it's out of body or whether it's a parallel life or whether it's a dream.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so cool. I'm yet to experience, like a past life or out of body or parallel universe or.
Have you tried, or,
Well, sort of tried. I guess I haven't tried hard. So
yeah, well, it's it's an interesting thing. Like you said, I wouldn't say tried hard, because these states, they require relaxed
a
focus.
softening into it,
And
like a surrender, right?
like, focus is like, I'm going to concentrate, but that actually is like a tense focus, and then it keeps people from being in the state. So there's this, it is this weird kind of in between place that we have to get used to. And so rather than tried hard, I would say persistently or consistently. What happened for me was, so when I first started meditating, I really was coming from a left brain perspective. I had been really steeped in being in my left brain, even though I think that my personality or my being is more right brain naturally, but we live in a very left brain world. And so meditation was pretty hard for me at first, and I really wanted to give up and just not do it. But there's this whole story about, how I connected to my spirit guides, and they were the ones that were telling me that I have to meditate. Otherwise, they were going to stop communicating with me. And I really didn't want to lose that connection. And so we need something that motivates us, right? To keep going, even when it's not fun or even when it's frustrating. And so that's what really got me to keep going. And then once it finally clicked, I don't remember how long it took, then I wanted to meditate all the time. And it was kind of a little bit of escapism, like, oh, this ugly world that we live in, and people are so harsh and mean, and oh, this beautiful spiritual world, I just want to hang out there all the time. So I would meditate for like 3 or 4 hours at a time and just get lost in it. And that's when some of these things started to happen, like the out-of-body experiences. Those just happened spontaneously. I do think I often joke to people, like, I think anybody, if you were meditating consistently 3 to 4 hours a day, like I was, I think anybody will have a big spiritual awakening and have, some of these things happen. So yeah, I would just find myself floating above my body. And I was just like energy. Um, or I would find myself floating in the cosmos, or things like that. And then that's also how I started going into past lives. I just was spontaneously going into past lives when I was meditating that long. And so these things started to happen first without me understanding. I didn't know how to make them happen. They were just happening. And then, it's not sustainable to be able to meditate for most people, to be able to meditate 3 or 4 hours a day. You have to work and all of these things. And
Unfortunately, yes.
yeah. So, eventually I couldn't do that, meditate for that long anymore. And I would meditate for maybe 30, 40 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, but then I wanted to have this, particularly like the past life, yes, that too. But the out of body experience, I was like, how can I have that again? That's so cool. And I read a whole bunch of books, and there's a lot of really great books out there. But it's a lot harder to do it from a conscious state and leave your body than when you're just deep in meditation and you just slip out of your body. And so these techniques, they'll have you lay down and relax your body so much that you stop feeling it. And then you have to calm your mind, quiet your mind, and calm your emotions. And then you just have to wait. And that's the hard part. So after you've done all that, then you just have to patiently wait for what's called the vibrational state. So when your energy body is at the point that it can separate from your physical body, it's called the vibrational state. And there will be like this speeding up, and you'll feel your energy body vibrating, and you might sometimes hear sounds too. Just like a whirling sound or something like this. And then at that point, you're able to exit your body. And so the original person who created this first technique back in, like, I think the late 50s or early 60s, was this man, Robert Monroe. And now, he's since passed, but he created the Monroe Institute, where people will go to learn to leave their body. And his technique was called the rope technique. So once you get into that vibrational state, you're supposed to kind of imagine this like rope hanging down, and you pull yourself up out of your body. I could never do that, probably because in the physical world, I've never been able to pull myself up on a rope. And so then it would be really hard for me, even though your energy body doesn't have any weight. Like if you can't imagine doing it in the physical, then you have a hard time being able to imagine doing it in the energetic. So somebody else had created this technique, the rollout method. So you're laying on your bed and you get to that state, the vibrational state, and then you just roll out of your physical body. And that one, that's easy, right? Like we've probably all at one point in time rolled off the bed accidentally or something, right? And so just to roll off. But what would happen is I'd get to that, and then like I would roll off, and then just like my pinky would be like stuck in my energetic pinky would be stuck in my physical pinky, or something like this. Like I could 99% get out of my physical body, but one part would be stuck. Or sometimes, yeah, it was really hard to do it that way. And so the way that I would recommend that works if you have the discipline, which I really don't have the discipline to do this, is where you set your alarm to wake up after 5 hours of sleeping. So you sleep for 5 hours, and then when your alarm goes off, you've gotten enough sleep, but because you really want to be in the in-between waking and sleeping state. And so when you go from conscious, alert, waking, it's harder to get there. When you go from already having slept, it's easier kind of just to pull yourself up halfway out of sleeping than to sink your whole self down and remain there. Mm-hmm. And so your alarm goes up after 5 hours, you get out of bed, you go to a different room, like let's say your living room, lay on the couch. And then as you're laying there half awake, you just keep in your mind repeating, now I'm out of body, now I'm out of body, now I'm out of body. And then you just gently float up out of your body through the roof. It, for me, every time I've done it, it works every single time.
Oh,
So I
okay.
recommend that
There
way.
you go.
The problem for me is having the discipline that when the alarm goes off after 5 hours to get up out of bed and go. I'm always just like, I'll do it tomorrow. And I try not to fall back asleep because sleep is like so enticing after 5 hours. And so if you
Hmm.
can get up out of bed, it works. But yeah, that's the hard part.
Okay. I'll try that one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very cool. Um, Now, you also do Reiki. You're a Reiki master teacher. So does that mean that you teach other people how to be Reiki to
Practitioners.
practitioners?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So,
Yeah. I love it. And even, mhm.
no, you go. You go. That's fine.
Yeah. Even, I mean, so I teach people Reiki. So I teach people how to be Reiki practitioners. They can go and do, Reiki as their business like I do. But actually, a lot of people come to level 1 Reiki class just to be attuned to Reiki, which means to be opened as a channel for Reiki so that you can give yourself Reiki. And so this is another
Awesome.
thing, a great tool. So if you are somebody that maybe has a hard time getting into these meditative states or calming your left brain, busy mind so that you can experience a past life or so forth, I really recommend Reiki or some other type of energy healing modality. And so Reiki is a Japanese energy healing modality. Rei means universal and Ki means life energy. So Reiki is connecting to this universal life energy, this high vibrational, pure energy. And everything is energy. So we're energetic beings. Our body is energy. Our mind is energy, our emotions are energy, and our spiritual self is energy. So through connecting to Reiki, the Reiki works through your energetic system. It can help clear and release stuck areas. It can help restore flow and balance, and it can help raise your vibration. And it feels wonderful. So it's calming, and it can feel zen and peaceful. It can feel really, I kind of think of it like divine love energy. To me, it's very nurturing, very loving, very gentle. I use water as the metaphor for Reiki because water is soothing and soft, but water is also powerful. Over time, water carves a canyon. And that's kind of the way that I see Reiki, is that, you can use it regularly, and it's gentle and it's nurturing and it's balancing. And then after a period of time, you kind of look back at your life and you're like, wow, how did all of that change? It just happened very effortlessly. And
Mm.
that's what's really cool about it, is because, like, even like you said, like, I need to work hard at this, meditation thing or something, but it's really the opposite. It's about us letting go and going with the flow. And it's so, Reiki to me is a more right brain process. It's a more yin. We live in a very yang world, which is make it happen and push energy. And yang is a valuable polarity, but of course we also need yin to have balance. And so our world has kind of really gotten out of balance, been just overly focused on the yang energy, and just make it happen, push, dominate, create, and without the receive, trust, allow, be, flow, then we're all getting burnt out, and we're burning through all of the planet's resources, and we're not, seeing the interconnectedness of everything, and honoring the flow. Everything in nature has seasons and rhythms, and then we have, created electricity and machines that can go 24/7, but that's not really aligned with nature. Nature has cycles and flow. And when we have that, things remain sustainable. And so that's true within ourselves. We can't keep pushing ourselves, go, 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 go. We need to sleep. we need to play, we need to relax and enjoy, and that recharges our batteries to then create and go again. So connecting with Reiki, Reiki does everything and I do nothing. I just need to receive. I need to trust. I need to allow Reiki to work through me. So it's just in working with Reiki regularly, it naturally is helping me to tap into the yin energies of trusting and receiving. So as I'm working with Reiki, I'm really not doing anything. I'm not telling the energy where to go. I'm not directing it. I'm not imagining anything. I'm just opening to it and allowing it to move through my system, or if I'm working with somebody else, through their system. And so as that happens, shift is happening, and the person feels better, and they have more energy, and they're restored. And yet that was effortless. I didn't do anything. And so it's really powerful to have that experience when we're so used to feeling like if I don't effort, nothing's going to happen. And that keeps us on that hamster wheel of push, 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 going, going, going. And so here's this opportunity to experience, no, you can trust, and you can let go, and you can receive, and you can connect, and things will happen, and you can even enjoy it. And so it doesn't always have to be so hard. Growth doesn't always have to be through pain and struggle either. And so there's this wonderful, it's one of many other modalities where you can experience shift and transformation through ease and joy and flow.
Yes, I have. I had a Reiki session once, and it was. I wasn't very, I guess, tapped into the whole spiritual thing world at that point yet. But I heard that it was amazing, and I didn't exactly know what it was, but I went anyway, and the lady didn't say much, and she was kind of doing these hand motions over my body, not touching me, and just doing these ones. And I was just like, what is going on? And I was quite fascinated to see what she was doing. And then all of a sudden, I start like crying, just out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking anything, like I wasn't sad, like there was nothing like that. And obviously she was shifting something within that was moving something for me that I felt like I needed to express it in that way, which was I thought was quite incredible, because she wasn't even, there was no physical touching, there was nothing like that. And for somebody that isn't that spiritual quite yet, and for that to happen is it's quite shocking. It's like, what the hell did she do? Can anyone learn how to tap into Reiki, like the universal energy? And can you perform Reiki on, say, could you perform Reiki on me if you're on the other side of the world? Is that possible? And can you teach someone how to do Reiki in the other side of the world as well? Because I'm actually thinking about getting you to teach me.
Absolutely. So so anyone can learn Reiki. Anyone who wants to learn Reiki, I've taught it to children. Even Reiki's so simple. And that's the thing too, where in our culture, we think the more complicated something is, the better that is. And I was there too. Like after I got trained in Reiki, I was like, okay, what's the next more complicated thing? This is cool. And I learned, and I went to this like metaphysical school called Delphi in Georgia, the state in the United States. And I learned some cool healing techniques, color and sound healing and things like this. And they were really neat. But what I found was that none of these were better. They were just different from Reiki. And what I really like about Reiki is how simple it is. I've always kept coming back to Reiki, and it really the simplicity of it makes it very pure. So rather than having all these different steps and things that you have to remember to do, and having these different, like the color and sound healing, I had tuning forks and this kind of certain spray colored thing that was scented for each chakra, and all of these tools that I needed to add and apply in the right place, which meant that my personality ego could get in there and go, oh my gosh, what was the next step? What do I need to do? Oh my gosh, I did the wrong step, But with Reiki, once you're attuned, you just show up and you place your hands there, and the energy does whatever it needs to do. Reiki's doing everything, like I said, and we're not really doing anything. And so there's really no margin of error. Like, you really can't mess it up because Reiki knows what it's doing. So anyway, so yes, anyone who wants to can learn Reiki. And okay, I forgot your second question, but I remember your third. So your second was like, can you send Reiki? Can you send Reiki healing across the globe? Or yes, because energy is not constrained by these 3D time and space. So not only can you send it to anyone, anywhere in the world, you could send it to another planet, you could send it to you in a parallel lifetime, you could send it to you in a past life, you could send it to you in a future life, because time and space, are just these constructs. They don't really exist from the spiritual perspective. So the only limitations of it are your own creativity. And so a lot of my students have like expanded. I was like, oh wow, I didn't even think of that, what's possible. And so you can send Reiki anywhere, anyone, anytime. Of course, with ethics, right? You only want to send Reiki with permission to those who are open to receive it. Reiki won't do any harm. What will happen is just nothing will happen. You'll just waste your effort. If you're like, oh, that leader of the world, he really he needs some enlightenment. He needs to expand his consciousness. Let me send him some Reiki.
Are you thinking about anyone in particular here, Tianna?
Well, I'm trying to have. I'm trying to be inclusive here. So I think anyone from any country. We usually don't particularly like our leaders, right? We have some bones to pick with whoever our leaders are. But anyway, so not to make it political, but yeah, that's just an example. Or maybe like, oh, that grumpy guy in the office that everybody stays clear, right? They're like, oh, we should just Reiki him to be nicer or friendlier. Yeah, that's just not ethical, right? And it's really like a waste of our time and energy, because if I use the metaphor of Reiki being water, if you pour water on parched soil, it'll absorb it in. If you pour water on glass, it'll just roll off. Mm-hmm. And so people who are not open to it, they're glass, nothing's going to come in. You're just going to waste your effort. So anyway, got off topic, but so your last question, yes, I can, you can learn it on Zoom like we are right now, which is actually what I had to start doing when we went into quarantine. So I had always been teaching in person, and I'm not super techie, and so I just didn't really explore these other ways that of course exist now with technology. And then suddenly I can't have classes in person. So I was like, okay, I need to adapt my class to be taught online. And so I had another Reiki master friend. So this is before we went into total lockdown, and I was still in the office, and there was another friend of mine who had an office next to mine, who is a Reiki master as well. And so I was like, well, let's try this out. I'm going to give you an in-person attunement, and then we videotaped it, and then let's meet tonight on Zoom, and I'm going to play the video and have you just imagine receiving it from me, and I'm going to attune this empty chair on the video, and compare what you feel, right? Because he's a Reiki master, so he's sensitive. And of course, so when I'm giving the attunement, I can feel the energy transferring it as well. So I felt the energy both in person, and I felt it when I was transferring it to the empty chair. and he felt it both ways. And he said even he kind of felt more even when it was doing the distance attunement. So I knew, you know,
Wow.
and of course I already knew in my mind, like, of course, if we can send distance Reiki, we can do distance attunements. But I needed to have that experience just to feel completely confident
Sure.
that. So, and then I've been teaching some Zoom classes since then, and everybody's been able to feel the energy of the distance attunement. And so it's been going wonderful. And now, yeah, now I can reach out to people outside of Austin, Texas. And so that's been great
Yeah,
too.
all over the world. That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
No borders now. Well, cool, because I'm gonna look you up. I mean,
Great. Yeah. The only thing would probably be the time difference, right? Is like
well, yeah,
making sure, yeah.
yeah.
That's,
Which, you know, we can make it work. It's fine. It's fine.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would love that.
Yeah.
It's one of my passions, actually. I love, love, love teaching Reiki because, so the whole idea of, I name my business Awakening Transformation as sort of as an umbrella for any of the things that I do. The things that I offer as services to the world, I want them to be empowering to the person receiving it, so that they're awakening. You know, everyone is a piece of the divine, and just some people are aware of that and connected to that, and some people aren't yet. So my thought was like, oh, I want to help people awaken to that, to their own inner knowing, to their own divine wisdom, to their own truth. Because we all have different things that we came in this lifetime to experience. And so there's not like one truth that one size fits all. So everybody needs to connect to this higher part of them that they can trust to guide them through their life. And so I can be someone that helps along the way, but ultimately, you know, you have your own inner guru, right? Like, I don't want to be anyone's the person that has to give you the answers or figure it out. I want to show you that you have the answers within yourself. And so Reiki is a really great tool for that, because as somebody starts feeling this energy and that's awakening within them, like what I was saying about quantum physics is like, you start to just feel what's true for you, you know, and particularly in this time and age where we're just inundated with so much information. And so it's very confusing for people right now. What's true? You know, we have fake news and all of this, and there's just so many sources of information, and everybody's putting their ideas out there. And so a lot of people just get really lost and shut down and overwhelmed. And so when all of this out here is chaotic and saying different things, we need to be able to go in here to find what's true. And energy is a way that, like I said, you know, people can make themselves look pretty and they can say the right things, but they might not be genuine and sincere and real and authentic. But with energy can't lie. You can't fake the vibration of love. You can say I love you and not mean it. You can fake that, but you can't fake this energy vibration of love. Love has a certain vibration. Hate has a certain vibration. And so when we start to work with energy and we start to feel vibration, we can feel what's really coming from a higher place or what's not coming from a higher place. And that's super helpful as a compass to navigate through these crazy times. And so we're all needing to learn how to discern for ourselves. Again, not even like this idea of this ultimate truth, but what's true for me right now. What I need right now might be different from what I need in a year from now. And I just want to be able to feel into what is right for me right now and what's true for me right now, and be able to follow that and let that lead me to what's next after that. And so energy is just an incredible tool for that, in addition to the fact that it feels really wonderful. It's nurturing and joyful and calming and so forth. So so I love Reiki. It can help people wherever they're at. If you just need some physical healing, it can help you physically. If you are going through a lot of emotional turmoil, it can calm and soothe your emotions. If you have a hard time quieting your mind to get into the meditative state, when I give myself Reiki, it just kind of puts me into a meditative state again. So instead of me having to effort and figure out how to get there, it's kind of like and this like energy just comes over you and kind of puts you into that state, because it's a vibration. And so everything is a vibration, and that's a really powerful way to create change, is to shift your vibration versus there's so many ways outwardly that I can try to change. I can want to change my physical body, and all of these things are good, but we only have so much time and resources to be able to do that. I can have a personal trainer, and I can have a nutritionist that help me, my physical body, and I can have a business coach that helps me with my business coach, and a financial planner, and I can have a counselor for my relationships, and all of these ways I can work outwardly, but that takes a lot of time and resources. And so I usually need to prioritize out of all those things, maybe one or two of those things that I can focus on. But the cool thing is that all of those things are a reflection of my energy. So I can go in, and as I shift my energy, these things, my relationships get better, my business flourishes. I start resonating with healthy foods. And this is really true. And this is really fun from Reiki class. A lot of my students have told me that after they start working with Reiki more, they start craving healthy, vibrant, alive foods, versus before they had to sort of force themselves to eat those things because they knew they were good for them. Now they enjoy it and they want to eat those things. And that's just like junk foods at this vibration, and you're now at this vibration. And so and that's true. Like as you raise your vibration, maybe this old toxic codependent relationship was here, but now you're here. And so you're not attracted to that kind of a connection anymore. You're vibrating at this level, and you're attracting somebody in your life who's at this level too. So working with energy is just really powerful, and yet it can be kind of effortless, because it's about what you're magnetizing in versus what you're out there pushing out, trying to create all the time.
It's so true. And that's, generally how, as we grow and as we work on ourselves, whether that's physically, spiritually, or what have you, that's when you start to notice that, like you were saying, certain relationships might fall away because you're now vibrating at a different level, and those people just don't resonate anymore. Yeah, it's really interesting to see. Okay, I'm gonna switch the dial a little bit here.
Okay.
Well, you kind of touched on it, but what do you think? What is your perception of what is happening right now in the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my perception is that we're going through a big shift. So we're talking vibration. Vibrationally, the planet is actually shifting into, from people talk about 3D to 5D, into a higher vibration, which, when people first hear that doesn't seem to make any sense, because everything's falling apart and we're going through so much turmoil. But actually what's happening from my perspective is that all of these old structures and ways of being that were lower vibrational, that we've been living in, they're falling apart, and they're all of the stuff that's been swept under the rug, like in the country where I live, in the United States, racism and sexism and these things, they've been around, but like people didn't think it was such a thing because nobody was talking about it, because people weren't bringing it to light. And so as we're shifting into this age of Aquarius, if we talk, astrologically, that's about this truth coming out and moving into this expanded consciousness. And so, so as we're moving into this higher vibration on the planet, then these lower vibrational things are not aligned with that. So they're falling apart. So they're crumbling and they're coming to the surface. It's sort of like a big energetic detox. So I know you work in like health and nutrition and things like, so if anybody's ever done like a juice fast or a cleanse, I remember the first time I did like a 3-day juice fast, and that first day and a half, or maybe even the 2 days, were not fun because as I start eating and just taking in liquids, then all of these toxins are starting to clear out of your system and come to the surface. They're coming to the surface to be cleared, but when they come to the surface, it doesn't feel good. You might get a headache, and you feel tired and sluggish in your foggy mind, and your skin breaks out, and all of these kind of like negative side effects. And my boyfriend at that time was doing this fast with me, and he was like, "This juice fast's not good for me. I feel horrible." And I'm like, "No, you have to break through to the other side. All of this stuff is coming up. You've been carrying this around. You just didn't notice it because it was like deep in your cells." And he was like, "Nah, I don't think so. This headaches are too much." And he stopped. And so then what happens is all of those toxins just absorb back in, go back into the underground in your body. And I kept going. And then, on the third day, like I woke up just full of energy, and eyes were white and bright, and my skin was clear, and I felt wonderful. And so kind of we're going through that process, but it's not going to be 3 days.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
So we're the part where the headache part, where the skin's breaking out and everything is sluggish. And so all the toxins are, in our society are coming up, and they're coming up to clear. And we're in that murk of needing that stuff to come up, and we need to look at it, and we need to own it and accept it. And then we need to push past and create this new vibrant way of being that's aligned in this higher vibration. And so, I'm not an astrologer, but I love learning about astrology because it's one modality that it's using these particular astrological archetypes to talk about energy. And astrologers have been talking about 2020 for years and years and years. They could see from the planetary alignments that something really big was going to come down. Everybody just didn't know how, because it's an energetic influence, but the way it would play out wasn't for certain. But they were anticipating this. And so whether it was COVID or something else, it's going to happen. And so rather than, just looking at the material surface level of, we have to fight this virus, which we do, they whatever it is, need to work on it on the material level. But really, we need to look at like, what am I learning through this experience? Of course, collectively, as a society, what are we learning? But then, the macro, the collective, is a reflection of the micro of our own individual self. And so when we feel like we can't make any change in the outer, it's always, we always have empowerment to work within ourselves and shift energetically, because we're like a hologram, right? We're a piece of that. And so as we shift this, we are shifting that. And so, there's all these different conspiracy theories, and I don't know. I don't know what all is true. I think there's pieces of truth, just like there's in a lot of the religious beliefs, there's pieces of truth in that. So rather than ascribe to like one specific concept of what's happening, I just try to look at like, okay, what do I need to learn from it? How can I be of service during this time to help others because all of this stuff is coming up for people. And so everybody has their own way of being of service, and so it's just for us to kind of see what are our gifts or what are our calling and how to do that. But, so this whole virus thing, and then everything shut down in the world, and you can see some value and benefit from everybody was staying at home, and no longer could we distract ourselves with the busyness of our 9-to-5 jobs. And so suddenly I had to, everybody has to like look within themselves and face this family structure that they have or don't have, and face their emotions that are coming up and look at their beliefs. And so again, like this overly yang culture suddenly had to like become very yin, and that was hard for some people, and other people were totally reveling in that, like, yes,
Yeah.
finally, but it's really about finding balance. It's about finding balance and embracing the fact that the only thing that we really do have control over is this. And so we need to pay attention this way and work in this way. And so that whole sense of powerless that people are feeling and have been feeling, that's because we were getting our sense of security from these outer structures. And so it's sort of like a global dark night of the soul. And I went through a personal dark night of the soul about 5 years ago, where everything in my outer life fell apart. And it was really, really scary and destabilizing. And all of my efforts to try to make my outer situation stable and weren't working. And I finally just had to surrender to the divine and recognize, like, oh, I exist here on the planet because of the divine, and I'm always supported by the divine. I wake up in the morning because of this divine energy that's flowing through me, and anything that I see could easily also be gone in any moment, because all of the structure is temporary. Anything that's physical and material is temporary, because we're on this temporary physical, planet experience to have that experience. But ultimately, we're all these eternal divine beings. And so the more that we are rooted in that awareness and that experience, then as the outer physical things keep continuing to fall apart and shift and change, we don't have to be destabilized, because our rootedness is coming from our eternal beingness.
So true. So good. All right. I got a good one now. So remember how when we first had a chat, we were talking about what kind of happened to wake us up, into like, more spiritual, or like just figuring out that, this isn't all there is more to life. And yeah, do you want to go into that a little bit?
To my personal story about how I
Yeah.
had my initial spiritual awakening. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, please.
So I wasn't raised in any kind of spiritual belief system. And so I just focused on the outer material world, and did everything that you're supposed to do, like get good grades and participate in these different activities so you can be well-rounded and go to college, and then study and be involved in activities and do well so that you can get the internship for the job that you want. And then so I did all of those things. Boom, boom, boom. Got the internship, got the job I wanted. Starting your career, and people are telling you good things, and you're doing great. And where do you want to move up in this company? And then just feeling really disappointed. Like I thought that, like, oh, because you're like, it is that whole thing, like you're pushing, and so there's no time to really like stop and question, like, oh, is this what I really want? Like this is what you've been told, and this is what you believe. And so you just are there's so many steps and so many things, and all of your time is taken up. And when I was in college, I had 3 jobs, and I took a full load of classes, and so I was busy, always keeping my time busy. And so it was when I finally, like, okay, now you've made it. You're where you aim to be, that you kind of stop, and then you look around, and you're like, oh, this is it. This is the top of the mountain that I was climbing, and the view's not really that great here. And so I felt sort of, I felt very disillusioned. And then where do you go? Like that was supposed to be, I was supposed to just keep working my way up that corporate ladder, but I didn't want to. I thought like, oh, so what? I'm just gonna keep working towards another title to have more money, to have nicer things, and that's the rest of my life mapped out. Like, I don't know, that just felt so pointless. And so I went into that whole that existential crisis of like, well, why do we exist? Why am I here? Just to have nice stuff and a title? And so, yeah, so this was all like when I first started in my corporate job. Like I said, when I was in college, so I worked 3 jobs. So one was like selling advertising for the student newspaper, because I was a marketing and international business double major. And then the other 2 were waitress jobs. Like one was in a fancy hotel, and then the other one, I had gone into this kind of like after hours underground club that a friend had told me about one night, and they were like, hey, you want to work here? And I was like, oh, this place is cool. Yeah, sure. And that job was actually really fun, because it was just like I got to like, because of course, like only people you have to be in the know to know about this place. And it was just like, I was like, here I'm serving drinks, but really I'm just like hanging out with all these cool people that I enjoy, and then getting paid. And of course, this kind of place, people like tip really well. And then, like if there's any like drunk patrons that are jerks, like it's the kind of place for my boss to just be like, get the hell out of here, whereas in the hotel, it was like, oh, the customer's always right. Even when they're total jerks to you, you just totally have to like absorb that, and they're always right. So it was really like freeing to work in a place like that. And then the place would close at 2. That's when in Hawaii the liquor license stops at 2, and then they would reopen at like 2:30 or slightly after 2 as this after hours club where there's no alcohol served, and they bring DJs in. And so, wow, that was how I got exposed to this whole other scene. Like first they had me like, oh, will you do the door when the after hours? And then of course I made friends with, this whole other group of people would come in. This whole rave scene would come in, and I made friends with them, and I got into the music, and then as you would imagine, so people would do some different psychedelics, and so I did ecstasy, MDMA. And wow, that just totally shifted it. I really feel like it awakened something. I'm not saying, again, like I'm not like telling everybody to go out and do drugs. And of course, a lot of people just do, to get, excuse my language, shit-faced, and not to connect spiritually. But what happened for me was that it was a very spiritual experience, because ecstasy, they apparently used to call it empathy, and it really works like that, because when you're on it, or at least what I took, you feel a lot of love, and I've read in books that it was the government was going to try to use it as a truth serum for a while, like they were trying to use it.
I heard that.
And I could see how that makes sense, because when you're on it, you just feel like there's no reason why you would not just be honest about everything, and just like everything is what it is, and you're accepting of everything and everyone and everything. So you're not hiding anything or pretending. And so there was this wonderful counterculture there of that. Like, of course, the rave scene is kind of all the misfits, and people come in and you can express yourself however, and everybody's accepted. And but there's also this feeling of oneness, this interconnectedness with you and everyone else, you accepting yourself, you accepting others. Everybody also seemed kind of very beautiful. Like there was like this kind of like shimmering thing. And then when the music would play, like there was also this interconnectedness with the music, how everything, like the music would play and it felt like it was speaking to me, and that's when everybody goes, oh wow, you were tripping. But like but really, like everything is like that. When people have spiritual awakenings, they can see how the plants are communicating with us. And it's just like, versus thinking like it's making us hallucinate and imagine something, it's more like it's lifting the veil that we normally have, the blinder that's keeping us from seeing how everything is actually interconnected. And so there was I loved to dance, and it felt like, the music was speaking to me, and then my body would move in response, speaking back to the music. And there was this whole interconnectedness thing that would happen that way. And so it sort of just awakened this thing within me where I had felt very disillusioned in the world about, it just felt very flat and empty, this pursuit of materialism and things. And so that felt very flat. But so I kept this job when I started my, this was like my secret second life. I was working this, corporate 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday. And then on the weekend, boom, I would work in this after hours club. And one night a week I would do ecstasy. I wasn't working, and I would do it. And I would experience this interconnectedness. And it really felt like, this is the way that things are supposed to be. We're supposed to just be loving and accepting of each other. Everything is interconnected. And so that sort of, I feel like it opened the door to some of this like higher consciousness remembrance of like, this is why this outer world wasn't making sense, because it's not aligned with the truth, the knowingness that I had inside. So I was doing that once a week, I don't know, for a number of months. And I'd started reading these metaphysical books, and I started, so one of the metaphysical books that I read was the Seth material, these books that were channeled from this higher being named Seth back in the 60s and 70s. And Seth is like amazing. Seth, so wise and but funny, and just I was just like so envious of the author Jane Roberts, who channeled Seth. I was like, man, just imagine if everybody had their own Seth, and we could just go to Seth and ask these questions. And so I wanted my Seth. I wanted my own Seth. And I looked in her book about how did she connect to Seth. And apparently initially she connected to Seth through a Ouija board. And so I thought, well, I might as well try that, and let's see. And again, I'm not telling everybody you should go do ecstasy. I'm not telling everybody you should go out and get a Ouija board. This is just was my path, my journey.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a million ways up the mountain. And I'm lucky. I think I had a lot of divine support and protection that kept me from, any of those things could have, people could have negative experiences, certainly with substances, and people can have negative experiences with the Ouija board. So I'm not advocating that for everybody. But yeah, my boyfriend at the time, the one who didn't like the the juice fast. Anyway, that was later. But he was really very open-minded, and so he's like, okay, let's try it. And so we sat down with the Ouija board, and it was moving. So I was excited. It was moving, but it wasn't really. It was just kind of spelling out gibberish. It wasn't really giving answers at first, but I was excited that it was moving. So we kept trying for a while, and then suddenly we were communicating with somebody. There was like words being spelt out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you my spirit guide? No, like, do you know me? Like, no. It's just like, what's your name? I can't remember the specifics, but it was something like, it's Joseph or Joe, and he died because his horse kicked him in the head. And he just basically was just like a random dead guy. It wasn't like an enlightened being. I was like wanting to connect to an enlightened being, but it was just
you
some random dead guy that had no.
Tianna, you lucked out.
But hey, I connected to someone.
That's cool. Yeah.
So I was excited. And then, but my boyfriend at the time was like done. Like, okay, I don't want to talk to some just random dead guy. Like, I'm done. But I was lucky that I was like working from home. My my boss was like in Dallas. And so here I am, like, like working from home, but I'm like doing the Ouija board and I'm meditating and stuff like this, for part of the time that probably I'm supposed to be working. But so my boyfriend would go off to work, and then I pulled up the Ouija board and I started doing it by myself. And eventually, so everything is intention. I mean, from the very beginning, I had the intention. I always had like, once I connected to spirit, I found there was this huge desire to tap into this other world, like, because the world had felt so flat, and then suddenly, like, the world was like full of color, and there was this whole, went from 2D to 3D or something. Like, there was this whole other dimension, or 3D to 5D more, like. But that up until that point in my life, I was just, I guess I was just going through the motions. I was like doing, we're all kind of like these robots, like, until we really tap into our higher consciousness. I was just kind of like, okay, go from A to B to C to D, boom, boom, boom. What do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? Kind of thing. And then suddenly, like, this whole other realm and reality had opened up to me. And I was just like deeply interested and passionate about it. So I had this very sincere desire whenever I go to the Ouija board, was to connect to a high, and let me plug this in, a high being, high consciousness being that could guide me. And so, sorry, I just kind of plug in my.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
Here we go. I got the low battery.
Yeah. No,
and so one day, so when my boyfriend at the time was at work, I connected to this being. Her name was Fanny, which I thought her name was funny. Anyway, she had really useful information for my boyfriend. He had been having some struggles with his boss, and she had just like all of this really powerful insight about, she's talking about these other lifetimes that they'd spent together, he and his boss, and this is why they had this dynamic now. And it was really insightful, stuff that I had no idea what to tell him about work. And here was all of these answers. And also she kind of scolded me a little bit, like, about, like, I was kind of like the one that wore the pants in the relationship. She was telling me to how to just be more balanced and so forth. And and she was kind of funny. And so when he came home from work, I gave him this message, and wow, so now he's very interested again, right? Because it's useful information for him. And so we started to connect with her and write down the messages that she would bring, which was great. But I was like, but what about my guide? Where's my guide? There's his guide, and she's there for him, and that's cool. But what about my guide? And so then one day, my guide came through, and his name was William, but he said, call him Will. And so,
cool.
So I've called him Will all these years since then. And he is funny too. He was very, he was more mysterious. Like, he wouldn't just, I wanted, like, Seth will just give you all the answers. My guide would say, like, you must quest for that answer. No, just tell me. So he kind of speak a little bit in riddles, and so he kind of guide me there, but he wouldn't, like, just flat out say. But anyway, so and he and Fanny both said, like, this isn't the good way to connect through the Ouija board. Like, basically, that they were, they're high vibrational beings, and they're dropping their frequency down to meet me so that we can communicate, and they're holding this channel safe and protected so that there's no other interference coming in, but that I need to learn how to raise my vibration to connect to them. and instead of them coming down here, you know, this, because these low, and also these lower astral realms. And this is why, you know, when people use Ouija board, they'll connect to the lower astral, which will be these mischievous, you know, spirits that want to mess with you and scare you. And usually people are using the Ouija board to sort of scare themselves, right? Like you're like a teenager or preteen, and let's all do this spooky thing. And so that's what you're going to attract. You're going to attract some, you know, being that wants to scare you, and that's what you want, and that's a match. But if you're really wanting to connect to a higher, you know, being, a wise, loving, high being, you need to learn how to raise your frequency to that, to match, and then you can more easily communicate. So they told me, like, you need to learn to meditate. So I tried, and this is what I was saying before. It's like I tried, but I was coming from this whole, you know, left brain background of doing, pushing, and busy. And it was really hard for me to relax and just let go. And I tried some, and then I just go back to the board and be like, oh, it's too hard. Just talk to me. Tell me the answers, you know. And they did some tough love. They were like, we're only going to meet with you, you know, 1 day a week. You're going to need to practice meditating between now and then. And I tried again, and I got frustrated. I just would go back to the board, and they finally were just like, we're not meeting with you anymore on the board. You're going to have to meet with us in meditation. And sure enough, I'd go to the board, nothing would happen. Anytime I tried, different times, different days, nothing would happen. And it was so, I felt this huge loss, you know, this whole other world had opened up for me, and I was just getting my feet wet, just exploring, and I was looking forward to all of this. And then boom, I was like stuck back in, you know, when we were talking before, I said the Wizard of Oz metaphor.
Yes.
Like, it felt like before this, it felt like, you know, in the Wizard of Oz, it starts off, it's in black and white. Dorothy's in Kansas. It feels very dreary and kind of depressing and kind of empty and flat. And then, of course, you know, the storm comes, and then boom, the house lands in Oz, and everything's full of color and vibrant. And that's what it felt like for me. Is like that I had landed in Oz, and there was this whole crazy, beautiful, you know, amazing world that I wanted to explore. And then when the Ouija board stopped, it was like, boom, oh, you land back in Kansas. There you are in Kansas again, trapped. So, but it was, you know, they know what they're doing. Like, I didn't want to be stuck back in Kansas. And so I really wanted to connect back to Oz. And so that drove me to push past my discomfort with meditation and to keep going. And I can't remember, it took me a while. I had to explore different ways. For me, it really helped to listen to like a guided meditation versus just kind of like sitting there and trying to quiet your mind, and a million thoughts will come in. But if I listen to a guided meditation, it's like my brain would be like, somebody else is talking, be quiet. And so it helped to quiet my brain that way. And it also helped to, like, for me to listen to like a really long guided meditation, because it took a while for me to kind of decompress out there and slowly sink and settle in here. And so that's how I ended up starting to do these like 3 or 4 hour meditations. One day it just kind of clicked. And so it took me like an hour kind of just to get to like a deeper state. And then the rest of that time would just be enjoying that. So, so once it started to click, I was meditating 3 or 4 hours a day. And yeah, I just, I guess one day I just started to channel. I mean, different things happened. There were like, I can remember some beings working on my throat chakra. I felt like when I first started to channel, so I channeled Will and Fanny, but then there were these like 3 beings. They used to just call themselves We the Three, and they would come through. They felt very extraterrestrial, honestly. Like they, whereas like Will and Fanny you felt the warmth of, you know, like human personality. These ones they didn't, I mean, they're not like, they're not cold. They felt alien, you know. They were wise. They were different, and they would come in, and they were like working on my throat chakra, and I could feel different things happening energetically, and they were opening me up so that I could channel. And yeah, I like, because I would get in this really deep state. At first I started verbally channeling. Like one day it was just like this, the voice came out of me, which said to my boyfriend, like, grab a pen and paper. And so he did. And so initially, like, I was doing this verbal channeling and he was writing all notes. And then of course we got a little tape recorder, and we were, back in the day, a little tape recorder, we were
with the
taping.
mini cassette.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those little tiny mini, yeah, exactly. And that's how all of this sort of started. But then eventually my guide, so Will's been my guide, like my personal guide, all of these years. And then different other higher beings have come in and out at different times, you know, to teach me different things and to work with me on different things. But so it started off verbal channeling, but then really he said Will said that he wanted me to be more he didn't want me to have to like knock out of my consciousness and allow him to come in. He wanted me to be able to just be embodied and then communicating. It's more telepathic. That's like the way that I do it now. Sure. And there have been times when I was channeling a lot, and then there are times like, so again, like Will has done this tough love thing with me a number of times. So from that point, I had this like big spiritual awakening, and then I had gone and got trained in Reiki. And this was all when I lived in Hawaii. And then I decided to quit my business job, move across the United States to Boston, and kind of just get away from everybody so that I could kind of find myself and do a lot of deep inner work and have a job that just, I left this corporate job to work at a cafe for minimum wage, but I had time wealth. I had all of this time when I lived in Boston. I just worked in a cafe, and then it was like 6:30 till 2:30, 6:30 a.m. till 2:30, and then get off work, and it's not like I'd have cafe business hanging out in my head, right? You could just close the door, you leave there, and then all of the rest of the afternoon and evening was my time to like go deep within, explore all of these things. And so, and because I was only getting paid minimum wage, I didn't have money to do anything else anyway. Like I call those my monk-like years. I lived in this, you know, really, like me and that boyfriend, we moved there. We lived in this really tiny, kind of dreary apartment in Boston, because we didn't realize like how competitive the housing market is, and you have to like find a place 3 months in advance. And so when we got there, like we had 1 month advance thinking we could find a place, but anything decent was like taken. And so we just had this like dreary little basement apartment where the window, you could just see people's feet walking on the concrete. And then, you know, like went from Hawaii where everything, you step out of your door and you smell flowers, and pretty much anywhere on the island you can see the ocean and everything is, you know, paradise, to like gray and concrete and brick everywhere. But it was perfect because and then you have these cold, long New England winters. And so there weren't the outer distractions. And so I could just really go deeply within. So that's why I joke, those are my monk-like years, living in this small, sparse place, just doing all of this like inner spiritual work. So anyway, I used to, initially I would consult Will all the time, right? Because that was my idea with the Seth. It was like, oh, I just have this spiritual resource. I can ask anything, which I guess, you know, he let go on for a while. And then one day, I can remember in Boston, one day, him kind of like, you know, I'm sitting down and talking with me, of course, just telepathically, and just saying like, you know, you need to trust yourself. I'm not really, you see me as higher, you see us as higher, but we're equal. You are a soul, you're a spirit. And it's just that I have 360 vision from where I'm at. And so I can see things in a different way than you can, but you need to start to trust yourself more. And so he tough loved me again. He said like, so don't ask me about this and don't ask me, trust yourself. And that's happened at different times in my life where I've gone in and been channeling more and getting support and answers. And then other times when spirit said, no, we're not going to show up anymore, and you need to find it within yourself. And so So I'm kind of in that place right now where every now and then there's different spiritual beings that I work with that will come in, but I don't like have them on beck and call. I can't just like call on them really. Like they'll pop in when they want to say something and share something with me. But most of the time it's me trusting my own inner knowing and guidance and following that. And everybody has that. So.
Wow. That's cool. I'm being mindful of your time. We've been talking for a little bit now.
Yeah, like an hour and a half, I guess. Yeah, I mean, people probably have like how much of a attention span to sit here and listen for all of this.
I don't know, because I've been riveted this whole time. So I'm sure whoever's, tuning into this, that find your story fascinating. But yeah, I'm just mindful of your time. So can you tell people how to find you? Like if they want to, contact you regarding Reiki, regarding hypnotherapy, any of that. Where can they
Sure.
find you?
Easiest way is to go to my website, which is awakeningtransformation.com. So it's singular. So because sometimes people put transformations, but no, it's just awakeningtransformation.com.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so now it can reach people all over the world. So the classes that I offer, you can take via Zoom, and same with hypnosis, and everything I do can be done virtually. There's also some helpful blog articles on there. There's some other podcasts that I've been on recording that just kind of explain the processes of the services that I offer. Also visit the podcast that my friend Tim and I do called beyondtheillusionpodcast.com. And we talk about all of these different spiritual things, and we have guests that come on and talk about the things that they do. And so we can really expand more on all of these. You can hear more of my crazy stories. They're all on there. There's so many.
I literally had more questions, but I'm just like, how long can this podcast be? Like,
yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Look, I'm so grateful to have you on. I love your stories, and I wish we could just keep talking. But yeah, probably not sustainable for a podcast to have, like, I don't know. I'm sure there are like 2-3 hour long podcast episodes out there, surely.
Maybe.
But yeah, I'm sure you've got plenty of stuff to do. Anyway, but thank you so much, Tianna. It's so lovely talking to you and hearing you talk about the things that you love, because you just radiate when you're talking about it. So it's beautiful to kind of be in that radiation glow. And I'll definitely be contacting you about the Reiki. So
great, I look forward to that. Yeah.
Yes, me too. Awesome. Thank you once again, and I will see you on the interwebs out there.
Yeah. See you in the cosmos. Bye.
Bye.